Testing, testing. Hello, Martin here from geminiwalkandtalk, and today we're going to do a tour of one of Seattle's neighborhoods, Beacon Hill. And the reason I want to do that is because this is one of the most central neighborhoods in Seattle, and yet it hasn't actually been able to rapidly develop like many parts of the city. And I want to explore why. And if you have any ideas, I have my own theory, but if you have ideas, please comment below so we can discuss. So I'll turn the camera around for the most part, and I'll give you a tour of Beacon Hill and give you my thoughts on why I think it has remained underdeveloped like this. The first thing to notice is this train station right here, and it has been here since the beginning of the operation of the Seattle Light Rail by Sound Transit. And yes, this neighborhood has had the train all along for over a decade, I think about a decade and a half now. And it's built here in the northern part of the neighborhood. And another thing about this neighborhood is that it's almost adjacent to Seattle's urban core. If you continue north this way, just a bit, you end up in Chinatown, which is one of Seattle's urban core neighborhoods. And I'll talk more about that later. But first, I want to show you the area around the train station. And no surprise, it has been a target of some development here. You see condo buildings on this side. And this station coffee is a pretty popular spot. Lots of people come here. Other places nearby, there are a lot of restaurants, or some I should say. It's not like a high number, but some restaurants exist, and we come here to eat sometimes. We are able to get off the train and come here. And here is one of the plazas that was built. I think it has to do with Mexican community in the area, because in the back there is El Centro de la Raza, which means center of the race. And yeah, there's also a big preschool and daycare over there, which is bilingual. I think it was aimed at Mexicans and other Hispanics, but also many other children go there and study Spanish since a young age. On this side here, more condos have been built directly on the back of the train station. So this is what would be called transit-oriented development. However, I think there's just a couple buildings here over a decade after the train station was built. They did not proceed with that. I'll quickly exhaust here this urban center because it's very small. The urban center of Beacon Hill is very small. And so I'm on the very back of the station right now. It's practically under me as I'm walking here, this building. So they did some of that, transit-oriented development, but very little. And this was all while Seattle was experiencing a boom, a huge spurt of growth. Population increased a lot, development increased a lot, employment increased a lot, and real estate rates were at zero for a long time. So there was a boom here, and you could see it all around the city, but for some strange reason, not right here in Beacon Hill. They did build another nice library on the other side here, which I'll show you. But that kind of is it. Here I'm coming around, circling the same block which I started on by the train station, and you will see a few more restaurants and shops here. I like this Mediterranean food, and there's fresh flowers, pastry, and coffee, possibly gluten-free or something, I'm not sure, I have not been there. And I'll cross the street now. So this was a block and a half of so-called transit-oriented development. Here I'm crossing, and you see already how it becomes like 1 or 2 stories, maybe 3, very quickly. Here's a bank, old-style development, single-story bank with a parking lot, basically suburban development. As I cross the street here, one of my favorite bars is over there actually. It's a brewery technically, which is kind of interesting, but it is the best part of this area here in Beacon Hill. If you come in working hours, I'm here in the morning, but it has a very good beer and food menu. And because it classifies as a brewery, children are able to come here and sit because, you know, they make beer. It's not just a bar for getting drunk. Also, if you see here, the food is really good. Clams, bone marrow, chili shrimp, crab cakes, some fusions like banh mi and other stuff. Also making ice cream in-house in addition to beer in-house, truffle burger, salmon burger. And the beer is all brewed in-house in the back there. Very good beer, very good food. And here it kind of looks like a little farm vibe with these pumpkins and the sunflowers. Later they put out seating here. So this all becomes like a garden in the front. And they have tables with little propane fires. And then there's this nice frog bench I like and the children like a lot. So this is called the Perihelion Brewery. It's my favorite bar and restaurant in Beacon Hill. So we come by a train here sometimes, get out of the station I just walked out of, which is straight ahead now. I've circled it. And so yeah, there are good things here. However, as soon as you leave this little urban center, you see already as I'm crossing the street here, I enter the next block over and there's this red apple, which is entirely Suburban Development. And this red apple is their main grocery store. It's got the huge parking lot, it's a single story, there's nothing over it. And I'll point you here to the background. You see the towers there? This is how close we are to downtown. I could walk in downtown in 20 minutes, but I'll explain to you why I will not. But I'll walk in that direction. So you see here, we are on the edge of downtown where the skyscrapers are. That black tower is the Columbia Tower, the tallest building in Seattle. You're that close to it. And yet right here, you have a suburban grocery store. And the truth is that besides this little urban center here, which is really just a block and a half, the entire Beacon Hill is actually a suburb. It's suburban development all the way through. There's almost nothing but this, except single-story housing. And it goes from the edge of downtown Seattle, is giant, all the way south to the city limits almost of Seattle on the south side. So you're talking a giant swath of land right in the middle of the Seattle metropolis, which is practically a suburb. And I really wonder why. And I want to tell you my theory about it and why I think that is. Yeah, little has been done truly to improve it or to develop it, despite the location, despite the train station. Everything should be in line for this neighborhood to just start growing new buildings like mushrooms. So what is going on? Okay, so I'm going to walk a bit now around and show you what happens as soon as you step away from this main strip, and how there really is nothing but the single-story housing here, or single-family dwelling, what they call them. That is the zoning for the most part. So you see here, immediately beyond the train station block with just a couple condo buildings, this is what you start getting right here. It's all this housing that was built something like 100 to 70 years ago. They're not new. And there are many, many of these houses. It goes for miles and miles. They have very nice gardens. Some of them are very cozy. So in a way, if you want a certain style of life, a certain lifestyle, which a lot of people actually like, and that is kind of a suburban lifestyle actually, with a little garden, a little house, your own trees, your own everything. You park your car, you live there with your own family, no neighbor sharing walls with you or floors and stuff like that. You can have that here in Beacon Hill and in the same time be right in the middle of Seattle. And that is not at all a bad thing. So for that reason, this neighborhood is popular. The prices are high here, but it doesn't see much development. And it, in fact, doesn't have that many services or things to do because of that. It has a very nice park called Jefferson and a nice community garden called the Beacon Hill Food Forest. And I really like those places, but that too is actually a suburban development style. And it has a golf course on it. So it still, again, feels like you're in a suburb. sometimes even like it's a countryside. To me, being from Europe, a lot of this housing, it looks like rural, because European villages are tight with little gardens like this, and the European villages are walkable, and this feels a lot like a European village actually, right in the middle of an American metropolis, one of the most thriving, fastest developing, fastest growing metropolises. You see how people live here. And yes, you know, again, this is very desirable to some people. I'm not knocking these houses or this way of living. I think that it's quite nice in a lot of ways, but it's not by any means urban. And being in the middle of the city on a train stop, I actually kind of am baffled that it remains like this. Development has gone into here, and it's mostly north of here, and I'll go there next. But first I wanted to show you the nature of the neighborhood for the most part. And you know, I like some of these houses. I wouldn't mind having some of them. The reason I don't live in such a house is because they're expensive, but for what they cost, they're also old and would take a lot of upkeep. And so I don't want it enough to pay the price and to do the upkeep. So I've chosen to live in a newer townhouse somewhere else. But this kind of lifestyle is possible here. Many people have gone for it and they like it a lot. So, you know, to each their own. It exists here, it's good. And it's actually quite hard to find the house here, to pay for it. The prices are very high, the availability is very low, inventory is low. So yeah, this is what it is. You know, they're not really lavish houses for the most part, but they are your own, you know, it's a single house. And so again, this continues for miles. I'm not gonna walk it all. I just wanted to show you a little taste of it. And now I want to start explaining why I think that this neighborhood has not really developed as much. So first I want to explain, Seattle has a few urban neighborhoods that are actually urban, meaning Capitol Hill, Belltown, Lower Queen Anne, and that's kind of it. Some of them are tapping into that now, like Ballard, Columbia City, Fremont perhaps. And those neighborhoods are generally quite expensive. Here in Beacon Hill, there was at first some momentum when Capitol Hill started developing a lot and changing in nature and getting very expensive. They were saying, oh, Beacon Hill is the next Capitol Hill because it's so close to the city, and that's where people can still afford to live, some of them that are moving from Capitol Hill. I even knew such people. And then we all thought that there would be more momentum for this to become the next kind of thriving neighborhood that starts developing or gentrifying, if that's the word you want to use. And that actually did not happen. What did happen is they built a lot of townhouses north of here, and that's kind of it for now. I think a big part of the reason is that the history of the neighborhood is such where Seattle was divided kind of like most of America was by demographics, and there was so-called redlining. So this here was the neighborhood primarily, I think, of Asians and also some African Americans, and that was its reputation and background for a while after that was done. And I think it had a strong Chinese community in particular, which I think Beacon Hill still remains majority Asian actually, and that's kind of rare for an American city. But with that reputation, when a lot of Americans move here, they actually don't choose to live south. All of South Seattle has that reputation, and a lot of people simply don't consider it when they're moving here, investing here, or living here. And it has changed a lot, but people simply don't know that very well. And that's, I think, part of the reason why a lot of the development has not caught up here. Because if you look north, a huge amount of development has happened in neighborhoods which don't historically have that reputation. Even though that reputation really is no longer so much valid because so much change has occurred since then. And you have seen the change, the demographics have shifted, the income levels have shifted a lot and things like that. However, the reputation remains. I've experienced it when talking to coworkers and so on. You know, they're all saying, you know, younger people, in 30-year-old or something, they're like, I'm looking for houses, I can't afford anything. There's nothing good or big or enough for me. And I'm like, have you looked in South Seattle? And they're like, not really. And then kind of try to close the subject, change the subject. And so here I'm in front of the library, which was an investment the city did. And it's a very nice library. I love coming here with my son to read books to him. So that's one new thing that was added, but that was government, it wasn't private investment. And here I am closing the loop again, back at the main area. So I'm gonna turn the camera and start walking forward to show you the northern end, which is close to downtown. And I'll continue describing why I think the neighborhood hasn't developed fully yet. So that's one reason, the reputation which remains from the past, even though it's no longer truly valid. If you do look at the demographics, especially at this station here and north of it, a big change has occurred. But the type of development which has been put here is somewhat urban. It's really row housing or townhouses, a bunch of them at once. Very few condos. You see here on the right is the area where the train station is. And that is the only area that got developed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stories high. That's it. That's it. Everything else remains very small. Not much big investment. And behind there, that plaza I showed you, that really is truly it. And I think another reason is this underdevelopment, despite the location, is self-reinforcing. Meaning, since there isn't very much here, no one wants to be the first one to make a giant development and put a lot of money in here, because there just isn't as much interest in their mind, or there wouldn't be as much return. While if you go to a hotspot, you'll probably get better return on your investment if you're a developer. And perhaps that is how developers are thinking, and maybe the incentives are not right for them in their minds. But the location is so good that I think that should change, and yet it hasn't. Here I will walk north, and you'll see how almost immediately there's nothing else. And new houses have been added in the form of townhouses in particular, which is fine. You know, I like living in a townhouse. Some of the greatest cities in the world consist of townhouses, like Amsterdam, Copenhagen, and many other Northern European cities. And I like that style of living. It's not bad at all. I'm just saying that more should happen here. In particular, when it comes to an urban center and things to do, because you look at what you get immediately is if you get out of the station, this is what you get right here, a big parking lot and a single-story grocery store. That huge lot can be redeveloped with 5, 6 stories on top of it, and that way whoever the developer is can make a lot of money and still have a grocery store at the bottom, which is what Safeway has been doing, which is another big landowner in the Seattle area. They've started converting their stores from this style of suburban development here, like this Red Apple, into urban development. And so they make a lot more money on the real estate while they continue running a grocery store. It's a no-brainer. And they'll do it everywhere eventually. It's just kind of shocking that here, I think we're like a mile or two at most from downtown Seattle. And yet you see suburban grocery stores. Over here you see just housing, single-story housing. Some of it is dilapidated. So back to the subject of why it's like this. Well, this was developed like this. You know, like when it was zoned as a suburb, even though it was so close to Seattle. And then when it was redlined, it was really deprived of investment. And this whole neighborhood remained underdeveloped right in the middle of Seattle, and changing it has become a problem. Now, another thing is you may hear these planes flying over my head. This neighborhood is a hill, and it's right on the flight path of the airport, the main SeaTac airport for the whole Seattle metro, and it's really loud here. Every few minutes, you get a massive plane revving its engine above you, and you may have your little cozy house, you know, like they do over there, like I showed you, and yet this noise is non-stop. So it's like suburban, quiet style of living with huge planes buzzing over your head every 2 minutes or so. That's actually one reason I could not live here. The planes alone are too much for me. But the other part is I don't like the underdevelopment. You see here, I'm going to walk soon when the light allows me. And a lot of these are shut down actually, and the buildings are kind of going to waste. They're Haelio. The buildings are borderline dilapidated, which is sad to see because, you know, this again should be thriving, could be thriving. I believe in the future it will be thriving. However, at the moment it's struggling, and it has been like this for a good decade plus. I mean, it always has been truly, but it should be thriving like the rest of the city is thriving, while the rest of the city is booming. Beacon Hill remains behind. That's really the paradox here. You see a shut down building, this market went down. A lot of businesses here went under during COVID actually. And it's because again, the density is such, the underdevelopment is such. Over here on this side, a massive lot has been cleared up, just kind of sitting. And that is 2 blocks from the train station. Yeah. Right here I just passed is one of my favorite Mexican restaurants actually. It's called Carnitas de Michoacan. Carnitas Michoacan Taqueria. I like it a lot. They have birria with consomme. So if you want good Mexican, you can come here. You can get right off the train. Here is one of those little Mexican or Chinese or ethnic markets of some kind. Then here, I will be walking forward and showing you what happens as I get north. I'll probably turn the camera off until I close the distance a bit, because there is actually a big development happening on the other side, which I want to explore at the former Amazon headquarters. I'll see you soon. Okay, here you can see what kind of development there has been done a little further out from the station. These duplexes, triplexes of townhouses. Some of them are 3-4 stories, most of them are really. So they take one of these big houses on the other side, you see that big house? They take one down, and on the entire lot they put like 6 to 8 townhouses, which, you know, is a substantial increase of density. But that type of development alone does not allow for things to do, like commerce and goods and services. It just allows more residential. Now, as you're increasing the density, you should have more capital to do the other kind of development, which does provide space for goods and services, but it hasn't happened very much. And so, you see more townhouses in this block. So many of these blocks now here in North Beacon Hill have been redeveloped and have been covered entirely by townhomes, townhouses, row houses, whatever you want to call them. Some very little condo here and there, maybe not even at all. You see, I'm looking more and more into, there's one here, there's one on that corner, there's one on that corner. That's really what's happening here. And much of North Beacon Hill has in fact been redone. And the prices are pretty high because of location. And yet, actually there isn't much to do right here. If you see, other than housing, there's not a single thing around me. And the people who do live here, because of their central location, they can get around pretty well. But when they try to go have fun, do things, they go either north into the main part of the city, or they go southeast of here to Columbia City, which does have a nice urban center actually. And there, I'll show you another video about Columbia City. It's a flourishing urban village type of neighborhood, which actually illustrates the concept of an urban village very well. So here's another block of row housing, 3 stories, rather new. And it goes on and on. This kind of development continues a long time. And I'll show you what happens in the end when we get to the very edge of Beacon Hill to the north. There was a detour here, and I wanted to show you. They're making a new sidewalk. I had to go around, and it's detouring me, so I stumbled upon this alley here. And you look how pretty much rural. This is what I talk about, how it gives me rural vibes when I'm here. I'm now on a dirt road with grass in the middle. And this is bamboo growing on the side, blackberries, invasive species, both of them, by the way, just overgrown. And that's really what here is in Beacon Hill, just a mile or so from the city center, the main part of downtown Seattle. That's kind of the baffling part to me. You would think every inch of this land is coveted and developed like, you know, the main cities in Europe, in New York, and other places, you know, like Asia too. Every inch of land is looked at. But here, you have this kind of stuff. It's really kind of shocking to me. And it will change, but the question is when, because it's been very slow to change. And yes, I'm in an alley, but you know, that is what this neighborhood is composed of. These houses and alleys overgrown like jungles. It looks to me like the countryside in Europe. It's really funny. Look at this dirt road that I'm going by. Kind of amazing to me. So, you know, I don't think you can say that I'm exaggerating when I say that this neighborhood is underdeveloped. And you see here, as I pop out, a brand new, probably very shiny white townhouse has been built. The prices are around $900 to $1 million for one of these, and there are 2 units you're looking at. So someone took down one house, which was probably aged and falling apart, and built several $1 million homes right here. Maybe 800 in some cases if they're smaller. If they reach 2,000 square feet, which is rare, but they can, then they are 2,000 or $1 million. Another plane you hear. I have a lavalier, so it's much less loud than it actually is to my ears when you hear it on the camera. And here you see row housing, a big swath of it. Narrow, tall houses, lots of them. Hello. And new sidewalk is being built. They're still kind of finishing up this development truly on the ground level here. They're making a new sidewalk because that too, you see here, the level of disrepair of the old sidewalks right here is completely busted, and it ends right there. There's like a dirt trail. And so here they're now remaking the sidewalk for that reason, and they'll probably do the landscaping. One thing I like is that they have kept these old trees, because that's among the most beautiful parts of Seattle. It's abundance of very nice tall old trees. And I continue making my way. See, they're working here, trying to develop this place, adding new kinds of sidewalks that are better for walking at least. Now I have to navigate around this. Let's see. I think the cars are stopping, so I can scoot through here. That's right. Say hi. Okay, so more sidewalks closed. They're remaking this quite a lot. I'm having a little hard time having to pop in and out. Wow, the whole road here is under construction truly. Maybe they're adding a bike lane. I don't know what they're really doing. This is a main arterial, by the way. It's taken this long to get to it and redo it. Another plane, you see, zooming right over my head again. It really is every minute or two. It's crazy. And again, that alone makes me unable to live in this neighborhood. Partially because I make YouTube videos and it's really loud. But it's just sensory overload, which is taxing on the nervous system as well. Oh yes, they are building a bike lane. Okay, so you can see one of the projects here. This arterial is getting a bike lane, and together with that, it's shrinking from 2 lanes in that direction, or in each direction, to 1 and then a bike lane, and it's becoming narrower, and therefore there will be less traffic on the street and slower traffic, which is something I majorly support. Even though you actually don't see that many people biking, when they shrink the road, they make the road better for the pedestrians simply by removing traffic from it. Makes it safer, quieter, less polluting, and becomes a better city and more real city, I would say. So yeah, that's happening here, it looks like. They're adding these curbs to protect the biker from fast driving or cars simply using the bike lane for a car lane. Some kind of a pea patch here, terraced pea patch, community garden. Roses are blooming in the middle of October, in case you wonder how it goes in Seattle. As you see, fall color in the same time. And I love this kind of growth with the vines, they're flowering vines creeping. I love this style. So many good gardens in Seattle and every neighborhood, but you can see it in Beacon Hill for sure. Okay, I'm gonna walk more to cover the new development on the other side. So one thing you'll notice here, so few people actually walk that they're not giving you a very good way to cross. And I have the baby on a stroller here at the moment, but they actually were like, well, nobody walks here anyway, so we're not gonna care very much for actually allowing you to pass through here on foot, because I'm being forced to keep changing sides. Hi, thank you. There hasn't been a very good path left for pedestrians while this work is going. And they are remaking things. It will be better once they finish, for sure. So yeah, I'm vlogging here while the baby is having his long morning nap. That's actually what I've been doing often. And it's a little challenging, actually, this close to the center of a major American metropolis. It's actually rather hard to walk because of sidewalks being in and out. And they're working on it, as you can see. It's just the problem is big, so it takes a long time. And progress is slow. It is kind of beautiful here, though, if you see the big trees, and they're tucking in condos and townhouses among them. It's a charming place altogether, I would say. And I'm walking the ridge of a cliff. I'm right on the edge. You'll see soon when I emerge. On this side there's a park, which is basically a cliffside park with trails going down the cliff. Here, fall color galore. Nice, truly. I like it. Okay, I am now very, very close to the edge of Beacon Hill. And you see this big building here called the Pacific Medical Center. And I believe some part of it still operates as medical. At one time it was actually the main headquarters for Amazon, while Amazon was still growing a lot. And it outgrew this, but for a while it was in here. And then Amazon acquired something like 70 buildings downtown, some of them built from scratch. So Amazon grew right here into what it is today. Now I'm going down this hill, and I will tell you the next thing about this neighborhood that it suffers from and why it's a bit of a hurdle to develop. And that is because if you just go down this road, you will reach the end of Beacon Hill, and there's a bridge over the freeway ramps, and there are many, and you will enter Chinatown. But Chinatown at the moment, that's the only way to walk to downtown. But when you go there, it is completely now become an open air drug market. And you can see people doing drugs, buying drugs, selling drugs, passed out from drugs, some of them dying from drugs, no joke or exaggeration. Overdoses happening right there. It looks like a movie, like it's hard to believe it's real, and it's basically the downfall of humanity right there on display. And so if you follow this road, and I will not, especially not with the baby, but I don't even want to make such videos, you will see a really horrible situation unfolding. And because of that, your main way of walking to downtown is kind of severed. It's not safe for you. It's a really, really bad idea to be walking this daily to get to downtown. So I'll show you actually where we are in Beacon Hill. As I emerge under these trees, you will see one of the best views of downtown Seattle there is. And you'll see the location this neighborhood is in, how central, how extremely urban it should be. while it actually remains suburban. That's kind of the paradox of Beacon Hill, which is the topic of this video. And what you would take for it to change, it will change, but it apparently is going to be slow, incremental change. And it will have to do with fixing this crime problem down there, because it is really encroaching. Even the green belts around here are getting full of this problem. But you will now see right here, I am facing directly downtown Seattle, the biggest skyscrapers, the most urban part of this metropolis. And this is the biggest city north of San Francisco and west of Chicago, which is a giant swath of land. And this is the biggest city right here. I'm staring at its most urbanized part. North of San Francisco, west of Chicago. This is the most urban place you're looking at. And I just walked out of a suburban neighborhood and the style of development it has. And you can see here where we are. These are the stadiums down there under the spider web of freeways. And that's another part of the problem which divides you. If you're in Beacon Hill, you have to walk over all this spider web of freeways. And then you have to walk through Chinatown, which again is an open-air drug market and drug consumption zone at the moment. So I wouldn't actually do it, like it's dangerous. For me to proceed down this road is dangerous. And so here is where we are. And back here is back to Beacon Hill, where I'm going to go back. What you'll notice is that in front of the big medical building that has been there for a while, now they have built a big condo building. It kind of aims to blend with it, because the color choices are the same and the style of development is not very different. So they've added on, they've made more condos right here on the edge of Beacon Hill. And you would simply have to basically walk over this bridge and you would be in the city. But at the moment that is very dangerous. So I don't know how these people are getting around, maybe taking a bus, but even the bus has problems. So yeah, big investment right here. It's kind of what you would expect to see in a central neighborhood like Beacon Hill, right next to the city. So it's happening little by little, and it suffers from problems, and its reputation, which some of it is still called for, some of it is not, but it hasn't really developed all that well. So in the heart of Seattle remains a huge suburb. Quite interesting. Okay, this was the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it or got some knowledge out of it or better understanding of Seattle. If you like Beacon Hill, you could go live in a suburban house in the middle of Metropolis. And that's what's good about it. But if you expect that neighborhood to have a thriving urban center, you will not get that. See you next time.